The Irish rap group Kneecap and their, well, let's call it highly charged performance at Glastonbury.
Absolutely, it caused quite a stir.
And you've pulled together some great sources, news reports right from the festival, giving us a real sense of the controversy.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, I think, is how this one performance pulls together so many threads. You've got artistic freedom, political protest, the legal system, media responsibility. It's all in there.
So the plan today is to kind of sift through these sources, figure out what really happened, but also why it matters, right?
Exactly. We'll look at the band, who they are, these specific allegations, what they actually said on stage.
And how everyone reacted, the big institutions.
Right.
Okay, so to understand why this Glastonbury set became such a flashpoint, we probably need to start with Kneecap themselves.
Good idea.
They're an Irish language rap group formed, 2017?
That's right. 3 members. Mo Chara, that's Liam Ogo, hAnnaidh Moglaibap, and DJ Provai.
And they weren't exactly unknown before this, were they? They had that film last year.
Yeah, that semi-autobiographical film, and it had Michael Fassbender in it, Oscar-nominated actor.
Right.
So that definitely pushed them into a much wider public view, beyond just music fans.
It feels like controversy sort of follows them, or maybe they court it. Tell us about the earlier stuff, the media attention after Coachella, supporting Palestinians.
Yeah, they've definitely been navigating some political heat for a bit now.
Okay.
And the main legal issue, the thing that really led into Glastonbury, actually stems from footage that came out not long after Coachella.
Right.
It allegedly shows Mo Chara, Liam Ogo hAnnaidh displaying a Hezbollah flag. Now, Hezbollah's armed wing is a proscribed terrorist group in the UK.
And this was at a gig back in November 2023, the video, supposedly.
That's the allegation, yes, November 2023.
And this wasn't just like online outrage, this led to actual legal steps.
Oh, yeah. Anti-terrorism police investigated. And Mo Chara, his name in court was Liam O'Hannah, was charged with a terrorism offense. He denies it, currently out on bail. Had a court hearing in London just a couple of weeks back.
And the political reaction, pretty strong, I gather.
Very strong. And fast. Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, straight up said their Glastonbury appearance was not appropriate.
Okay.
And the Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandy, basically said the same thing.
That's quite something. The government weighing in like that before the legal case is even resolved.
It really highlights that tension, doesn't it, between, artistic expression and what the state sees as security concerns, especially that word, inappropriate.
Yeah. But Glastonbury went ahead anyway, despite all that pressure.
They did. And the scene there, huge. West Holts stage, apparently one of the biggest crowds in the whole festival.
I read they had to fence off the field like 45 minutes before they even started.
Yeah, huge demand. Packed, solid.
So how did it kick off? The set itself?
Well, Mo Chara came out wearing a Palestinian keffiyeh, the scarf.
Right.
Held his arms out and just announced, Glastonbury, I am a free man.
Wow, straight into it, addressing the legal situation head on.
Absolutely. A very direct, sort of defiant statement.
And did they talk about the charge itself during the set?
Moglaibap did. Called it a trumped-up terrorism charge.
Okay.
And then he linked it back, saying it was, and this is a direct quote, not the first time there was a miscarriage of justice for an Irish person in the British justice system.
Okay. Bringing in that whole historical context, what's the impact of saying something like that there?
It's powerful. It taps right into, a long, often difficult history between Ireland and Britain and perceptions of the justice system. So it frames his bandmate situation, not just personally, but as part of this bigger historical Irish narrative.
Right.
And they also made a point of mentioning the Prime Minister. Said something like, the Prime Minister of your country, not mine, said he didn't want us to play.
Drawing a clear line there.
Definitely. Reinforcing their own identity against the UK government's stance.
And the music, what was the vibe?
Described as raucous, rabble-rousing electro rap. Very club culture, drug culture references.
So high energy.
Totally. Crowd reaction matched it. Smoke flares, moshing. Not exactly a quiet afternoon set.
Sounds pretty intense. So you had this kind of party atmosphere, but then these really serious political messages layered on top.
Exactly. That contrast was quite stark sometimes. The hedonistic music and then these very direct political statements between songs.
And the main focus politically seemed to be Gaza.
Very much so. They're outspoken critics of Israel's military actions. That was a central theme.
And Mo Chara made that connection explicit, didn't he? Something about colonialism?
Yeah, he said, we understand colonialism and we understand how important it is to support each other internationally.
How does framing it like that work for the audience, connecting Irish history to Gaza?
Well, it draws a parallel, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Between Ireland's history and the Palestinian situation now. It's an appeal based on a shared sense of struggle against perceived oppression.
Mm-hmm.
And building on that, they accuse Israel of genocide, led the crowd chanting, "Free, free Palestine."
We should note, of course, that Israel strongly denies any allegations of genocide in the Gaza conflict.
Absolutely. That's an important clarification.
They also mention another group, Palestine Action.
They did. Voice support for them. Now, Palestine Action uses direct action, targeting companies linked to Israel's military.
And the UK government is trying to ban them, right?
Yeah.
Proscribe them under anti-terror laws.
That's the plan, yes. Following things like activists breaking into an RAF base, spray painting planes.
So for Kneecap, on that huge Glastonbury stage, to publicly back a group facing that kind of action, that's a big statement.
It really ups the ante. It's not just an opinion, it's challenging the government's line on what's acceptable protest versus, illegal activity. And that led into more chants, this time aimed at Keir Starmer, criticizing UK arms sales to Israel. So they're hitting multiple angles.
And you could actually see the politics reflected in the crowd, too.
Yeah. Reports mentioned lots of Palestinian flags mixed in with the usual, novelty Glastonbury flags.
Yeah.
Made the message pretty visible, pretty unavoidable.
Which must have put Glastonbury itself and the BBC in a tricky spot.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But the festival founder, Sir Michael Eavis, and his daughter Emily, who runs it, they stood by the booking.
They did, publicly.
Yeah. Emily Eavis said, basically, Glastonbury is a platform for artists from all over. Everyone's welcome.
Okay.
And Sir Michael was even more blunt. Said something like, people who don't agree with the politics can go somewhere else.
Wow, that's quite direct. Telling critics to take a hike, essentially. What does that say about Glastonbury's identity?
It strongly signals they see themselves as a space for, well, even controversial voices. They're willing to defend that role.
And Kneecap acknowledged that support.
Oh, yeah. Mo Chara gave them credit, said the pressure that family was under, and they stood strong. Fair play to them.
But for the BBC? Broadcasting this? That must have been a headache. Impartiality rules, offensive language guidelines.
A real tightrope walk. They didn't live stream the set.
Ah, okay.
But they said they'd put highlights out later, confirming their programming meets guidelines, and crucially, that they don't ban artists.
It's a tricky balancing act for a public broadcaster, isn't it? Dealing with raw political speech like that.
A masterclass in media navigation, really. When you've got artists making direct political claims, potentially controversial stuff, how do you cover it impartially?
And Mo Chara even seemed aware of that challenge, didn't he? Making that joke about the BBC editor.
Yeah, spotting all the Palestinian flags and joking the editor would have some job. He knew the implications.
So if we pull back and look at the bigger picture here, this wasn't just another festival set.
Not at all. It was this real nexus point. Music, politics, law, media, all colliding. And it really throws that tension into sharp focus, Artistic freedom versus national security concerns. Plus, the power of these big cultural events as protest platforms.
So for you listening, what's the takeaway? It makes you think, doesn't it? In this world where artists have huge platforms, information travels instantly, how do we engage?
Yeah.
How do we balance supporting free expression with, critically thinking about content that might be controversial or challenging?
And it forces us to think about what appropriate even means in public spaces now. Where's the line between protest and illegal activity? How do media outlets stay impartial when things get this heated?
Yeah.
What really strikes you about how all those different viewpoints just crash together right there at Glastonbury? Makes you think.